Hey there, nation. This is Commander CheapSkate, and welcome to the show where we show you how to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. Once again, I'm Commander CheapSkate, and this is battle report number 11 of the Tercio campaigns. And I'm also glad to announce this is also the very last battle of the Tercio campaigns line. We figured out the games we play, there's enough time of that, so for this final battle that we have, it is I, Commander CheapSkate of the Empire, versus Crimson and Clover, the Warriors of Chaos. So, let's see what happens with this build on its very last battle against Warriors of Chaos.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought, or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Power pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then the hell with you.
Alright, now let's talk about what exactly the Tercio Build is and what the whole purpose of these series of battle reports has been about. The purpose of the Tercio Build campaign was to figure out if we could use what's called a Renaissance tactic called a Tercio tactic. Back during the Renaissance days, the Spanish created this system of fighting where you had a major block of pikemen flanked on either side by units of handgunners and then supported by light cavalry as well as artillery. So the idea was to take this kind of tactic and apply it to the world of Warhammer. And so naturally, because of the time period that we're talking about, there's no magic items in this army, there's no magic whatsoever, there are no special characters, the only thing we're fighting with are bullets, balls, and blades. So the idea of this battle report is to see if we could actually make this tactic work, and so far it's doing pretty good. So that is the purpose of these builds. Alright, so now it's time for our Imperial Tercio build, the Eisenkreuz Freibrigade at 3,000 points. Our Lord Hero choices consist of a General of the Empire, Oberstkaufried the Eisenkreuz with full plate armor shield as well as a great weapon, and Captain of the Empire Hauptmann Hans Jaeger with full plate armor shield, great weapon, and Battle Standard Bearer upgrade. Our core choices consist of a unit of 80 halberdiers, the Eisenblut with a sergeant, standard bearer, and musician, as well as 20 handgunners attached to it. We also have the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, as well as the 6 Fusiliers, which are 6 10-man units of handgunners with marksmen as well as Lachlan long rifles on those. Our special choices consist of the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th Dragoner, which are basically 6 5-man units of Pistoliers with Outriders as well as repeater pistols, as well as 4 great cannons. And finally, bringing up our rare choices, we have 2 Hellblaster volley guns, which gives us a grand spanking total of 3,002 points. Alright, so now let's talk about my opponent's list, Crimson and Clover. It's a 3,000 point Warrior of Chaos army based on the Chaos Goddess Slannesh. So for the Lord Hero's choices, we have 2 Demon Princes. The first one is Crimson. He is equipped with Scaled Skin, Soul Feeder, Allure of Slannesh, Flaming Breath, Chaos Armor, Demonic Flight, and a Markless Slannesh. The second Demon Prince is Clover, who is equipped with Chaos Armor, Markless Slannesh, level 4 Magic Upgrade, a Chaos Familiar Power Stone, and she will be using the Allure of Slannesh. And then finally, their hero choice is Throg the Wintertooth, the Chaos Troll special character. Core choices on this army is 11 Chaos Trolls called the Horde of the Wintertooth, armed equipped with additional hand weapons. And then we have 2 Chaos Chariots called the Pleasure Drivers with Markless Slannesh on those as well. We also have 5 units of 5 Chaos Warhounds, the Sleeping Dogs, and each of those units is also equipped with a Vanguard special rule for those. Our special choices consist of another Gorebeast Chariot called the Pleasure Driver, as well as 4 units of 5 Hellstrides Slannesh called the Leather and Lace. They are equipped with Hell Scourges as well as Standard Bearers. And then the final special choice is the Chimera Flesh Stick with Flaming Breath, Regeneration, and Poisonous Ooze. And then finally, rounding out my opponent's rare choices is the Mutolith Vortex Beast, Pleasure and Pain, and that brings her total to 3,001 point. And we're off to deployment. So this is the Empire deployment on the left flank. As you can see here, I have all 3 units of my Pistoliers as well as my Outriders located on the left-hand side, kind of like bridging along this river here in order to protect my left flank from any attacks. And here's deploying from my center. As you can see there, I have my Great Cannon on the left-hand side, followed by my handgunners, putting that kind of like alternating waving pattern with a Great Cannon and volley gun in between those units. And then in the center there, I have my halberdiers with my General and Battle Standard Bearer. And again, on the right-hand side of that, I got my 4 units of handgunners and that waving kind of formation, as well as volley gun, as well as a Great Cannon on that side. And finally, on the right-hand flank of my deployment zone, I have a Great Cannon, as well as my 2 units of Outriders, as well as my unit of Pistoliers. And that pretty much rounds out deployment for my army. Basically, the idea is just to have my center hold, to shoot at my opponent as they come closer to me, and have my Outriders and Pistoliers on the flanks right up and intercept those Hell Riders, is basically what the plan is. Alright, this is Crimson and Clover's left flank. As you can see there on the very far left flank, we got the 2 unit of Hellstriders, and well as Crimson. I believe that's the Demon Prince that's there. That's the Fighting Demon Prince. So my opponent's forces are lined up here on the left-hand flank of their board. And here's a picture of Crimson and Clover's center line. As you can see there, we have the 5 units of Warhounds, which are being proxied by Goblin Wolf Riders as well as Goblin Spider Riders in this army. So I got an idea that they're probably going to try to intercept my handgunners as well as my war machines with those Warhound units. On the left-hand side there, on the bottom, you have the Gore Beast Chariot, followed by the Vortex Beast, followed by another Chaos Chariot, followed by Throg and his Chaos Trolls, followed by the second Chaos Chariot, and finally proxying using that Hydra model is the Chimera Flesh Stick, which is just kind of like a rude name, I thought. And finally, on my enemy's right-hand flank, we have the last 2 units of Hellstriders, as well as the level 4 Demon Prince of Slannesh Magic User, and that pretty much rounds out the deployment for my opponent. And with deployment being done, that takes us up to our Vanguard move. So you can see in this picture here, I send both of my units of Pistoliers and Outrider charging up forward about 12 inches. I also keep one of my units in reserve just because I'm not sure exactly how those Hellstriders are going to move out working for me. And as you see, my opponent basically matches me with those Hellstriders moving up forward, so I'm not too worried about those guys. I'll just end up capping those fools and then running away. So that's Vanguard moving on this side of the board. And Vanguard here in the center picture here, as you can see, my opponent moves up all 5 of their Warhounds up the full 12 inches. And right off the bat, those Warhounds are already in my center line, which makes me kind of worried because my opponent rolled dice and rolled first. So that means that he might be able to declare charges right from the get-go. And so I'm kind of worried about that one. And finally, Vanguard movements on this one. My opponent moves up her Hellstriders all the way up forward on that side, on the left-hand side. I decided to move one of my units up as well and leave the other 2 in reserve, just in case to see exactly how this combat might be going here in a little bit on the flanks, because the flanks are the most important part of the battlefield. So that pretty much rounds up Vanguard movements. And that brings us to the top of the game with Warriors of Chaos turn number 1, and we start off with the movement phase. As you can see, my opponent declares charges, and I flee as a reaction. And my plan horribly backfires on this one. I'm used to actually having my units be able to outrun my opponents and then, shoot and weave. That's pretty much how my light cavalry guys have been operating, but I did not I severely underestimate the movement characteristics on these Hellstriders. I think they have a movement characteristic of 10 now that I think about it. So I thought I was going to get away pretty well, but then I remember these guys are also light cavalry as well, so they also get stride just like anybody else. And these guys just run down my 2 units that fleet and absolutely destroyed 2 of my units right off the bat. And what's worse, they also get devastating charge now because they get bonuses for every unit that they destroy in combat. So right off the bat now, I'm already off to the bad spot on this combat. And in this picture, as you can see, my opponent declares charges with all of his with all of his Warhounds, his Chaos Warhounds. As you can see, he's engaged almost every single one of my war machines. So starting from the left-hand side, he's engaged my Great Cannon. On the center there, he engaged the other Great Cannon, and then he engaged my Hellblaster Volley Gun on the right-hand side of my guys, left from this view. Then he engages my second Hellblaster Volley Gun with the other unit of Warhounds, and then he engages my one of my other Great Cannons with his Warhounds as well, which means I only have 1 Great Cannon now in order to move on this. And then to make things worse, he moves his entire center line forward. The Gore Beast Chariot, the Mutilated Vortex Beast, the 2 Chariots, the massive units of Chaos Trolls, as well as Flesh Stick, they all fly forward, going their full march distance. And so all of my best killing things for war machines to take out those marchers are now gone. So right off the bat, I can tell now that my plan to just sitting back and shooting might not work out too well in this battle. And as you see on the right-hand side here, my opponent charges forward with 2 more of his Hellstriders and my 2 units that basically hang back. I didn't know my lesson the first time when I tried to flee reaction on the left-hand side, so they cut my troops on that one. And now that unit of Hellstrider also has devastating charge, destroying that unit of Pistoliers. And the other Hellstrider unit runs into my other unit of Pistoliers, but I like to hold instead of run this time. And then my opponent march moves their Demon Prince all the way up to the front there, so that ends up finishing up the movement phase for my opponent's turn. And with movement all done, we now move into my opponent's magic phase,
Hadouken!
where my opponent gets off the Cataphonic Crier spell that they have for that unit, for the Laura Slannesh, and she just blows away my unit of Pistoliers and just utterly destroys it, and it's just all kinds of bad.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
And with that, that brings us to the close combat phase. And as you can see in this picture here, the unit of direwolves on my cannon there in the center of the page inflicts 2 wounds on my cannon operators, and I have failed to inflict a single wound against the Warhounds. But the nice part is on the battle right next to it, the battle of the Warhounds against my 3 cannon operators from a Hellblaster volley gun, that combat actually goes pretty well. We actually inflict a wound on those Warhounds, and because they have such a horrible leadership test check, they failed the leadership check, and so those Warhounds are now on the run, which means that my Hellblaster volley gun is now free to start bringing the pain. And in this picture, the Warhounds inflict, it's basically pretty much a draw between the Warhounds as well as my other Hellblaster volley gun on the right-hand side of the formation. The Warhounds are able to inflict 1 wound on my cannon crew, so that's kind of sad, but they kind of basically stick it out. On the very far right-hand side, once again, my cannon crew survives, and we inflict 1 wound on the Warhounds, so the Warhounds has basically to turn around and flee because they failed the leadership reaction. So, hooray for me, I guess. And that brings us to Empire turn number 1 with the movement phase. So I decided not to move any of my units. I decided to keep them right where they're at. So that brings us right back down to the shooting phase.
This is my boomstick!
And this is basically where we start bringing the pain. As you can see there, I open up with my Hellblaster volley gun onto that unit, to that Chaos Chariot. We utterly destroy it there on the right-hand side. And my handgunners and remaining cannon that weren't engaged, we open up on that Chimera and we blow that thing back to Kingdom Come. So right off the bat, I destroy 2 of his units. And in this picture, my remaining unit of Pistoliers gets revenge for the 2 units that were destroyed, and we open up on that unit of Hellstriders on the left-hand side, right-hand side of my formations. Those Pistoliers take out 3 of those guys, so right off the bat, we cut that unit in half. But unfortunately, since they're Slannesh, they don't have to worry about panic tests, so they're still sticking around. And in this picture, my cannon turns around, opens up with full grape shot on that unit of Hellstriders, and we blow that thing right back to hell. So right off the bat, my flanks are kind of secured on the Hellstrider front, so I don't worry about those guys too much. And I finally learned how dangerous Hellstriders and Slannesh can be against other light cavalry units. So yeah, never going to make that mistake ever again. And in this picture, my unengaged units of handgunners open up on that other Chaos Chariot, and we also destroy that unit as well. So all the chariots are dead for except for that Gorby's Chariot, which I'm kind of worried about now because those things are beasts when they get in close combat. So that's shooting on this picture. And combat pretty much ends up being a wash for me, so that brings us now to Warriors of Chaos turn number 2. As you can see in this picture here, my opponent starts sending his forces forward. He sends his Gorpish Chariot charging to my unit of handgunners right there in the center there. The Vitolex Vortex Beast manages to fit right into the next unit of handgunners right between those 2 units of Warhounds, so now all my handgunner units are engaged in close combat. And that Demon Prince, I think his name is Crimson, I think, that's the one that's the fighter one, charges through the woods and also hits my cannon on the flank. So, and on the very far right side, those two remaining Hellstriders turn around and charge into my last unit of Pistoliers. So all my units on my right-hand side are now engaged in close combat. And to make matters worse, Throg, the Winter's Crown, as well as all of his Chaos Trolls, charge right smack dab against my big giant block of Halberdiers. So I'll try to anxious to see how this combat goes. I mean, my Halberdiers have an extra +1 strength for the Halberds, and there is 80 of them, so we do have Steadfast against that massive huge of Chaos Trolls, but at the same time, they're also Chaos Trolls, which everyone knows is a beast to try to destroy. I mean, my last combat with Trolls ended up going poorly, so I'm not looking forward to this combat at all whatsoever. So I got to figure out some moves in order to take out that unit. And in this picture here, my opponent tries to charge Clover, I think is what it is, the magic using Demon Prince into my my cannon, but they fail the charge roll, so because of that, they only move up to the highest die roll, which sets her up perfectly for a wonderful shot using Grape Shot. Assuming, of course, that she doesn't blow my cannon away with Kingdom Come with magic, so let's see how that goes. And in this picture, she charges one of her units of Hellstriders right into my last remaining unit of Pistoliers on the left-hand side, which is on the other side of that river. And with that, that brings us directly into the Warriors of Chaos's magic phase.
I gotta sing the Doom song now! Doom, 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 doom.
So, as you can probably guess, this unit is now afflicted with Frenzy, so not only do they take a wound for this spell, but my opponent decides to give these guys Frenzy. So not only do they have additional weapons and they get an additional attack on top of that, plus their Chaos Trolls, plus they're also Frenzy now. I think each of these models has like 5 attacks now, so that is looking just fantastic for my Halberdiers at this point. And in this picture, she casts another spell. That's the one that makes me require me to roll an additional D6 for leadership in order to break. So basically now with my rolls, I have to roll 4 dice and only take away 1 die to figure out which one is the lowest, and then I have to figure out for my other die, I have to take out the lowest score. So it's kind of weird. So I have to take out the highest score as well as the lowest score because I have hold the line special rules. So that leadership spell on this unit is kind of bad, which is kind of scary because these things cause fear, and I'm also have to worry about my guys breaking on this one. So let's see how that goes. And with magic done, we now enter the combat phase because my opponent does not believe in shooting whatsoever.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
And they absolutely destroy my pistol unit. Those Hell Scourgers are absolutely murderous because they always strike first with those bad boys. So their very first strike, as well as their Hell Steeds, just wipe out my unit of Pistoliers. So now this unit has Devastating Charge as well as Stubborn. So right off the bat, I can see why people like these Hell Riders or Slannesh so much because they're pretty brutal when they need to be.
He didn't fall? Inconceivable! You keep using the horde. I don't think it means what you think it means.
And combat in this portion was actually absolutely hilarious what happened. As you can see in this picture, I inflict 5 wounds on the trolls, and the trolls only managed to inflict 1 wound on me in return. So even with all the extra attacks that they got, with Frenzy, with their high strength, with all the stuff they roll, my opponent's dice just abandoned him in this combat. I was expecting to be like a meat grinding fest right now. I thought my unit would be like half dead. But luckily for me though, I only lose 1 guy out of the entire combat, so that was actually pretty cool. And my opponent on the other hand loses 2 of his trolls. But since they're stupid, they don't worry about taking break tests. But man, I thought that was just kind of funny because it's just you should just look at the look of my opponent's face. It was priceless. It was pretty awesome. While we were laughing about the combat that was going on in the center, though, on the right-hand side, combat is less than spectacular for me. The Warhounds manages to inflict 1 wound on my Hellblaster volley gun here on my right-hand side, as well as the Gorebeast Chariot manages to destroy my unit of handgunners on the right-hand side. So that part's not so great. And on this side, the Slannesh Demon Prince Crimson just absolutely has a heyday with my cannon crew and absolutely destroys them. They kind of charge forward. On the very right-hand side there, I lose 1 Pistolier in that combat, but at the same time, my opponent loses 1 Hellstrider. So because of that, we're kind of deadlocked on that side. So that's combat on this side. And with that all said and done, we start moving on to Empire turn number 2. So as you can see in this move phase, all my handgun units start peeling off to the left-hand side to start dealing with the threats that are coming on that side. I got to worry about those Hellstriders as well as that Demon Prince this turn, and I just kind of set up my forces to kind of intercept them when the moment arises. That unit of handgunners there in the center is still kind of stuck in the center. I was trying to go for a wheel to try to charge the flank of those Chaos Trolls, but those Warhounds blocked me from doing it, so it ends up being an illegal charge or a movement. So my guys right there are kind of stuck right there in the middle. So that part kind of sucked. And as you can see in this picture here, on the right-hand side of my battle formations, I have my handgunners kind of turned to kind of face the Demon Prince as well as the Chaos Chariots are coming in. My artillery pieces as well as my handgunners are now engaged in hand-to-hand combat with the Mutilith Vortex Beast as well as the Chaos Hounds. So one of the major things I had to downfall at this is when my opponent rushed me with those Chaos Warhounds, you effectively cut my shooting in half when they did that. So I was planning on whittling these guys a lot more before having to go to combat, but now I'm realizing now that that might not be the case, and my flank might fold under all these attacks that are coming. And with all that said and done, we now enter my favorite phase of this game, and that is the shooting phase.
This is my boomstick!
And as you see in this picture, my cannon turns to face that Demon Prince, and we open up with Grape Shot. And that Grape Shot just absolutely slays that Demon Prince. We send that thing right back to hell where it came from. Which was kind of nice because once we did that, it basically allowed me to basically move all my forces out of the way because within 12 inches was that unit of Warhounds. And because the Demon Prince got destroyed, they test for Panic. And since they only have like leadership 4, they basically take off and run for the hills, which frees up my other artillery pieces, which means now it's time to bring the pain. And just out of spite for having the gall to attack me, we open up with the Hellblaster volley gun on that fleeing unit of Warhounds, and we basically inflict 4 wounds. We kill those, and that unit there on the bottom of Warhounds continue to flee because all the destruction that is raining down upon them. So that is shooting in this picture. And with that, that brings us into the close combat phase.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
And this is pretty much where the pain starts being inflicted. As you can see in this battle, I inflict 3 wounds on the Chaos Troll, so I basically kill another one of them. But at the same time, though, they inflict 11 wounds on me. So now we're starting to see the pain of why these guys are so deadly. They just start steamrolling right through my guys. I lose an entire rank. The only thing that keeps me going in this combat is the fact that I am steadfast, which means I'm stubborn. So I'm modified leadership all the way. And on the far right-hand side of the combat, as you can see, the Mutalith Vortex Beast, sorry, I'm never going to get that saying down, Mutalith Vortex Beast goes into combat with my handgunners. We managed to inflict 1 wound on that unit, and at the same time, they inflict 3 wounds on me. So things are starting to look pretty bad on this side. And on the very far right-hand side of the board, as you can see there, with the combat between the Hellstriders as well as my Pistoliers. The Hellstriders managed to put off 1 wound on one of my guys, but at the same time, though, we finish off that unit by killing the last remaining Hellstriders. So combat is done on this side. And with combat being finished for the Empire, we now move on to Warriors of Chaos turn number 3. So we start off with the movement phase. As you can see in this picture, my opponent basically marches that Hellstrider unit across the river and straight towards my cannon as well as my handgunners. So luckily for me, though, they weren't within charging distance, so now I can just focus my time shooting that unit to pieces in my corresponding shooting phase. And in this picture, you can see the 4 remaining units of Warhounds fleeing for the hills. And now I can see basically why Warhounds are kind of used. Against prolonged combat, they're not very good, but for tying down things through suppression like my War Machines, they were pretty effective on that part. So because of that, these things are absolutely useless in close combat, I'm starting to realize now. You just basically send them as suicide troops because if they should take any losses or have to go through any leadership check whatsoever, these things are going to flee because their leadership value is so low. So as you can see in this picture, those Warhounds are now combat ineffective and they are now fleeing for the hills. And to finish off the movement phase on this one, my opponent decides to charge my unit of handgunners with his Gore Beast Chariot, and my handgunners decide to stand and deliver, basically stand and shoot as a charge reaction. As you see that, we also managed to inflict 2 wounds on top of that Gore Beast Chariot, one from regular handgunner, the other one was from my sniper who was inside that unit who sniped at the driver, so that unit is now 2 wounds down on the close combat phase. And as you can see on the right-hand side, Crimson, the fighting demon prince, charges into my last remaining Pistoliers. I'm not expecting those Pistoliers to survive very long, but it just buys me a round of combat and a round of turn to survive.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
And with that, that brings us to the close combat phase for the Chaos turn. The reason why is because their magic user is now dead, so he doesn't have to worry about magic anymore, which is good for me. And there's no shooting in this army. So as you can see in the picture there, right in the center, this is where the Chaos Trolls start inflicting the massive amount of damage that I was afraid they were going to do. In this combat, I managed to inflict 3 wounds on the Chaos Trolls, but I'm just having a hard time winning them. I mean, strength 4 against their toughness of 5 is being really hard to wound against them. Plus, you throw in those regeneration saves, and these Chaos Trolls are basically owning me now. And they, in turn, inflict 15 wounds on my unit of Halberdier, so that's not doing too well on that one. And as you can see, finally, between the combat between the Warhounds and my Hellblaster volley gun crew, finally goes somewhere. We managed to inflict 1 wound piece on that one. So there's close combat in this picture. And close combat in this picture is disastrous. As you can see from my handgunners, the Gore Beast Chariot inflicts 7 wounds on that unit, and we failed to inflict a single wound on top of the Gore Beast Chariot. And it's an absolute miracle that my handgunners actually stayed there instead of fleeing for the hills. Basically, they rolled snake eyes on their break checks, so that was kind of nice. So that unit is still going on with combat on this side. And it's kind of funny, on the right-hand side, my opponent basically goes to another epic failure on his dice roll.
He didn't fall? Inconceivable! You give us in the horde. I don't think it means what you think it means.
You would not believe the number of 1s my opponent rolled on his dice when he went to attack my Pistoliers. So he fails to inflict a single wound on those 3 Pistoliers. And at the same time, my 3 Pistoliers managed to inflict 2 wounds on that Demon Prince. So things are looking pretty up for those Pistoliers. I doubt that they'll survive the next round of combat, but it's just kind of neat. You know, I was expecting those guys to get obliterated just on the get-go, but it's kind of neat that they inflicted some wounds on the Demon Prince and managed to hold up for another turn. So go Pistoliers. Definitely worth all the time and effort. And with close combat done, we end up with Empire turn number 3, and we end up with the movement phase. As you can see in this picture, my unit of handgunners, the purple guys, declare a charge and successfully charge the flank of that Chaos Troll unit, so that's going to help try to balance out combat on that side. And as you can see in the back, my other unit of handgunners peels off to the left to kind of give support to my right-hand flank against the Demon Prince as well as that Gorby's chariot, because that chariot is going to be tearing up my troops all day long. On this side of the picture, though, I decided to keep my 2 handgunners as well as my 2 cannons left to kind of deal with that unit of Hellstriders that are coming my way.
This is my boomstick!
And that takes us to the shooting phase. As you can see in this picture, my cannons absolutely have to do anything because my 2 units of handgunners destroys that unit of Hellstriders. So that unit is now gone. And with shooting being all done, that takes us directly into the close combat phase of my army. And as you can see in this picture, that sending that handgun unit right into the flank of that Chaos Trolls was just enough in order to cause my opponent to break. And so we destroyed that unit. So with the combat res inflicted, I basically have a really successful round of combat. I inflict something like 8 wounds on that unit. They failed a wound of I think less than 5 on me. So because of that, I win in combat. When you combine it with the flank charge and everything else, Throg's Wintertooth and his troops are forced to flee, and my puppeteers decide to pursue, and we catch up to him and we destroy that entire block of trolls. And then my flank unit decides to overrun right into the flank of those Warhounds that are tying up my Hellblaster volley gun. So that was it. Between you, me, and the wall, I knew at that point that I had won the game because that unit of trolls was horrible. And with all my remaining units left, I now have enough to deal with that remaining Demon Prince as well as that Gorby's chariot.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
In this combat, as you can see there, the Warhounds end up breaking and fleeing because my unit of my Hellblaster volley gun guys managed to inflict 2 wounds on those unit of Chaos Hounds. So because of that, they broke and they fled as well, which allowed my handgunners to go into the flank of that Megalith Vortex Beast. At the same time, that Megalith Vortex Beast inflicted 2 additional wounds onto my unit of handgunners. It's a miracle that those guys actually stay behind. And unfortunately, on the bottom of the page, as you can see there, the Gorby's chariot finished off the last remaining handgunners that are left from the previous engagement, so they overrun to my next unit. As you see in the bottom of the page there, that Demon Prince finished off my last 3 Pistoliers. But you know what? It's a good sacrifice. I mean, those Pistoliers managed to inflict 2 wounds on that Demon Prince, so they're A-okay in my book. And this picture is just a top of turn 4, just to give you an idea what's going on the battlefield. So as you can see here on my center of my army, this is what it basically looks like now after all the combat is finished. My 2 mini handgunners that were going to deal with the Hellstrider's left-hand side have now gone 180 and swiftly formed to face what's coming with that Gorby's chariot. My Hellblaster volley gun as well as my cannon on this side also turned to face the Gorby's chariot as well. As you can see in the right-hand side of that picture there, I have my halberdiers charging to the back of the Megalith Vortex Beast, as well as my handgunners catching in the flank and my original unit of handgunners catching in the front. And as you can see in the top of the page there, the Chaos Warhounds are still fleeing for the hills. And as you can see in the right-hand side of this picture of the battle, my cannon turns a face to take on that last remaining Demon Prince. So that's pretty much the action what's going on the battlefield at the top of turn number 4. So with that, let's go ahead and continue on with the rest of the game. Alright, with that being said, that takes us to the beginning of turn number 4 for the Warriors of Chaos. And so the movement phase, you can see in this picture, the Gorby's chariot charges into the next unit of handgunners there on the left-hand side. And oddly enough, one of those units of Warhounds actually passes its rally test. So it turns around and begins to threaten the rear flank of my halberdiers that are charging to the rear of the Megalith Vortex Beast. So that is movement in this picture. And skipping magic as well as shooting phase for the Chaos turn, that takes us directly into close combat. Where my halberdiers as well as my handgunners basically take that Megalith Vortex apart and we destroy that creature entirely.
Get the hell out of here!
Unfortunately for my handgunners, however, combat doesn't go so well. They failed to inflict a single wound on that Gorby's chariot, but at the same time that Gorby's chariot inflicted 5 wounds on that unit, so they failed their break check and now they're running for the hills like it's nobody's business. And that brings us to the top of Empire turn number 4. As you can see in this picture for the movement phase, all I do is I take all my handgunner units as well as my halberdier unit on the right-hand side, and we basically go around and we go basically a full 180 towards that Gorby's chariot. So right now you can see that Gorby's chariot is now in a world of hurt. It is now pinched between 2 units of handgunners, my cannon, my Hellblaster volley gun on the left-hand side, as well as my other cannon. And on the right-hand side, it has to deal with a Hellblaster volley gun, 2.5 units of handgunners, as well as a great cannon over there on the top, and then you also have the last remaining 40 halberdiers are left over. So things are pretty much looking bad for this battle.
This is my boomstick!
As you can see in the shooting phase in this picture, my handgunners as well as my Hellblaster volley gun as well as my cannon open up on that last remaining demon prince, and we send that thing right back to hell as well, and we kill that one. So that's shooting in this picture. And in this picture, my 2 handgun units on the left-hand side open up on that Gorby's chariot there in the center, and they basically shoot that thing right back to hell. And then my cannons, Hellblaster volley guns open up on those flame units of Warhounds, and we managed to inflict a couple of wounds on those 2 units. And so that's pretty much shooting for this round. And with that unit gone, that brain rush brings us to the end of the game. My opponent basically surrenders because all he has left are like 4 Warhounds as they're fleeing away to safety as best they can. So that's the end of the game, and it ends up being another victory for Commander CheapSkate's Tercio Build. So now it's on to the after action report.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us to the after-action report for battle number 11 of the Tercio campaigns, Commander CheapSkate of the Empire versus Crimson and Clover of the Warriors of Chaos. And in case you forgot, the after-action report is the portion of the show where we talk about what went well and what went poorly for the battle and how to learn to adapt for the next battle. And as you can see in this one, this ended up being a victory for Commander CheapSkate against the Warriors of Chaos. So let's talk about some of the things that led to that victory. For the most part, it just ended up being bad luck for my opponent. My opponent rolled very poorly for all of his dice rolls for this battle, so because of that, I kind of able to take a lot less beating than I should have gotten off on that battle. For example, that very first round of combat between the trolls as well as my halberdiers, I mean, with that unit only inflicting 1 wound on my halberdiers, it really was a big changer and had a major impact for the battle, for the rest of the battle on that one. So just bad luck for my opponent. I need to look out for chaff charging to my war machines. My opponent was applied that use of chaff against my war machines in a very skillful way. If it wasn't for those warhounds charging into most of my artillery pieces, I would be able to destroy that opponent before they even got to me. But because they had those warhounds charging into my cannons and my Hellblaster volley guns, basically tied up me for most of my shooting. All I basically had to do was, all I had left was my handgunners, and they didn't do very much against the units that came up to me, except for taking out those chariots. But for the most part, a vast majority of my enemies' forces made it to my lines, so because of that, I need to look out for chaff charging into my war machines. And man, you gotta fear the wrath of the Hellstriders. Those Hellstriders are beasts. Anybody who tells you differently about those things, they're lying to you, because those guys just destroyed my light cavalry and opened up my flanks to just all kinds of pain. So next time I find Hellstriders, I will definitely not be underestimating those guys. And basically, my opponent not having any magic phase for this battle ended up being a victory for me. So from now on, as long as my opponents don't have magic, that pretty much ends up being a victory for me for the most part. So what I need to do for this build is keep on focusing on taking out my opponent's magic. And as I mentioned before, this is the very last battle of the Tercio campaign, so now it's time for me to take the summation of the Tercio build for this army and have an after-action report for it as well, to talk about what was the strengths and the weaknesses of this particular build for my Empire army. So in the end, I fought 7 battles with this group of guys for this build, and out of those 7 battles, I had 5 victories and 2 losses. So let's go and talk about the things that basically equates to that. Overall, this is a very interesting build. It's really focused on shooting as well as close combat because magic is not really a factor. So because of that, if you're looking for just a foot slogging, just shoot them up and finish them off in hand-to-hand combat type of build, this is the army for you. It's got very strong at shooting, but it's very, very poor on maneuverability, and that's one of the main weaknesses of this unit. I mean, having those long, thin lines of handgunners combined with that massive block of halberdiers, it doesn't move very well. It can't move very fast unless it's taking on opponents coming at me straight on. It will dominate that way. But if my opponents come at me at the flanks, I'm vulnerable at that point, because the only thing that protects my flanks are my light cavalry pieces. So without light cavalry, this unit is very, very vulnerable to being outdone. I mean, as you saw in other battle reports with the light cavalry from the Widows having me surrounded completely from behind and taking me out from the front, it was pretty bad on that one. So because of that, I was really outmaneuvered on that one. And against my opponents there with the High Elves, they came at me at the flanks and they had a denied center. And so because of that, they just outstomped my troops on that one. So unless your opponent is charging you straight ahead, like a majority of my victories from most of my battles, you're pretty much outmatched. This build doesn't have anything against the flanks, and one of the interesting facts about this build is that historically that's how the Tercio was eventually defeated. The opponents were basically just attack the flanks of the Tercio blocks, sending in cavalry to take out the light cavalry that protected it, and then finish them off with artillery fire and with long-range firepower. So because of that, the Tercio did fall apart in the end, and it wasn't a very successful tactic once they figured out how to destroy it. Magic will be a problem for this unit. Because there is no magic or magical items or special characters in this build, any opponent that you open up this, if they have magic, they will definitely be dominating against you on that one. So because of that, you need to look out for that. So always find some ways to mitigate that fact. For me, I primarily used Hawk and Long Rifles to kind of snipe at my opponents, and try to take out their magic users that way. So that ended up being pretty good, but at the same time, though, you're only taking a 50-50 chance to be able to take out those magic users. So as always, take out those magic users. As far as being competitive list, this list is not competitive whatsoever against magic users and special characters. This list will fall apart. But it's very fluffy and it's very fun to play. So if you want to try something new, my suggestion is go the Tercio campaign, Tercio build. Make the same thing with any army that you have. Just use whatever core choices that you have that could use shooting as well as hand-to-hand combat. I can imagine dwarves will have a really good time using this as well. So yeah. In the end, it was a fun build to play. It was nice to experiment, and now I definitely know. So from that point on, this pretty much ends up the Tercio campaigns and the Tercio build for this army. Keep in tune for the rest of the other battle reports, as well as other cheap shots and cheap thrills and cheap tricks that we'll be putting on the channel. So yeah, if you have any questions or comments or anything you want to say, feel free to add them in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you. So once again, thank you very much. Goodbye.